If you're here, it's not by accident. Something brought you, pulled you, nudged you from beneath the surface of your mind. Because some truths don't appear when you search for them. They appear when you're ready to receive. And this is one of them. There's a technique ancient, quiet, forbidden to most, hidden in symbols, sealed in silence, held in the currents of time. Thoth didn't leave it for the curious. He left it for the ready. This is not just information, it's an activation, a remembering of something you didn't know you forgot. A signal that speaks not to your thoughts but to your field. And if you feel something stirring right now, not fear but recognition, then you already know. What's ahead isn't for everyone, but it might just be for you. Let's begin. You've probably heard this before. Speak your truth. Say your affirmations. Declare what you want. But here's something no one tells you: reality doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you emit. There's a frequency you carry, even when you're silent, even when you're doing everything right. It pulses beneath the surface of your voice, your actions, your thoughts. And that frequency is the real language of the universe. You can tell yourself, I'm confident. You can repeat, I am abundant. But if deep down you're vibrating doubt, fear, or hesitation, then that's what gets picked up. That's what shapes your outcomes. It's not a punishment. It's not about deserving or not deserving. It's just resonance, pure and impersonal. Like a mirror that doesn't care what you want to see, it only reflects what is. When I first understood this, it shook me. It felt unfair at first, like, wait, so I've been saying all the right things, doing all the journaling, the scripting, the vision boards, and none of it worked because my energy didn't match. Yes, exactly that. But here's the flip side. Once you get this, everything changes. Because suddenly, you're not at the mercy of circumstances. You're not waiting for someone or something to give you permission. You're tuning yourself into a different signal. You're becoming the cause. And that's where it gets mystical, because the more you align with the vibration of peace, clarity, confidence, the more the world around you starts to reflect that back. Opportunities open. Conversations shift. Even the timing of things feels precise, almost as if it was waiting for you to tune in. Think of it like this. You're a transmitter. You're constantly sending out data. Every thought, every breath, every emotional undercurrent, it's all encoded in your field. That field is what the universe responds to, not your wishes, not your effort, your frequency. So the question is, how do I get what I want? It becomes, what am I actually vibrating right now? And even more, can I hold a frequency long enough for the world to reshape around it? This is the core of Thoth's forbidden teaching, not a mantra, not a spell, but a complete rewiring of how you exist in the field. It's the art of becoming the vibration you seek before the evidence shows up. Most people skip this. They want the results without the resonance. They want proof before faith, but that's not how the current works. The field doesn't respond to what's logical. It responds to what's consistent. It moves in rhythm with your deepest signals, not the surface, but the source. So if nothing else, remember this, you don't have to say it to shape it. You have to feel it, live it, let it echo from your bones. Because when your vibration shifts, the mirror moves. And the world, it starts listening in a whole new way. You've probably spent a lifetime learning how to manage your emotions, how to keep them in check, tuck them away, make them quieter, more acceptable. But what if emotion isn't something to manage, but something to listen to? Every feeling you experience is energy in motion, not random, not inconvenient, not weak, just energy trying to communicate in its own language. Anger, that's the energy of boundary, of power that's been compressed for too long. sadness. That's the energy of depth. The part of you that remembers something pure, something lost. Fear, it's not here to paralyze you, it's the guardian at the threshold. It's your system saying, wake up, something matters here. And when we ignore these signals, when we push them down or dress them up in logic, something curious happens, our vibration becomes scrambled. We send mixed signals. On the outside, we say one thing. On the inside, we vibrate another. And the field, it responds to the inside every time. The more we disconnect from how we feel, the harder it is to stay aligned. Not because the emotions are bad, but because they're raw data. They are the first messengers of misalignment. The compass hidden beneath our daily routines. Most of us were never taught how to sit with emotion. We were taught how to fix it, escape it, reframe it. But what if the real magic lies in feeling it fully, without the need to change it? Because here's the truth. When emotion is acknowledged, not judged, not suppressed, just seen, it starts to soften. It completes its arc. It returns to flow. And in that space, something shifts. The field around you, the one that once echoed your confusion, begins to stabilize. Because finally, you are no longer at war with your own signal. This is what Thoth hinted at in his hidden teachings. The emotional body is not a flaw of being human, it is the bridge to divine recalibration. When your feelings are honored, they stop distorting your frequency. They begin refining it. So instead of asking, how do I control my emotions? Ask, what is this feeling trying to show me? Where in my vibration is this emotion pointing? This subtle shift from managing to listening, from avoiding to witnessing, is where inner vision sharpens. Because to truly see, you must first feel. And to feel, you must allow. You don't have to become every emotion, but you do have to welcome their message. Because every unspoken feeling becomes static, and every emotion embraced becomes clarity. Let yourself be honest here, not for the world, not for performance, but for resonance. Because when emotional energy flows freely, your signal becomes unmistakable, and the universe responds not to your control, but to your coherence. Have you ever noticed how certain things seem to show up at exactly the right time? A song lyric that hits you in the chest. A stranger's words that echo a private thought. A repeated number on a clock, a dream that lingers like a whisper. It's easy to brush these things off as coincidence until they start happening too often to ignore. This is how spiritual awakening begins, not with lightning, but with patterns, with subtle echoes that ripple through your reality, nudging you to pay attention. You start to feel like something's different, not wrong, not broken, just different, as if a layer of fog is lifting, as if life isn't just happening to you anymore, but with you, through you. That's not imagination. That's your inner vision starting to tune in. You see, awakening doesn't mean escaping the world. It means realizing you were never just watching it. You've been part of the code all along. The observer and the creator. The dreamer and the dream. The strange pull you feel. The emotions that swell for no reason. The way time bends in certain moments, these are not malfunctions. They are signs that your field is syncing up with a deeper rhythm. A vibration that's been calling you from beneath the noise. You're not just here to consume information. You're here to respond to resonance. And once that response begins, once you start noticing instead of dismissing, listening instead of rushing, you become an active participant in your unfolding reality. It's a quiet power. It doesn't demand anything. It just waits for you to notice that every moment is a message. Every feeling is feedback. Every coincidence is choreography. And what's most powerful? You don't need to understand it all. Inner vision isn't about having answers. It's about sensing alignment. So when the universe taps on your shoulder through synchronicity, sensation, or silence, don't ask, "What does this mean?" Ask instead, "What is this waking up in me?" Because awakening is not a destination. It's a shift in how you relate to everything. It's when the veil between you and the field gets thin, when you stop waiting for proof and start feeling the pulse. You've never been just an observer. You've been in conversation with the cosmos all along. And now, finally, you're beginning to hear it speak. When people hear inner vision, they often imagine some kind of mystical screen in the mind, like watching dreams unfold behind closed eyes. But true inner vision isn't about seeing things. It's about sensing truth. It's not fantasy. It's not illusion. And it's not some rare gift reserved for the chosen few. It's the subtle ability to recognize patterns before they form, to feel the energy behind a word, to know when something is off, even when it looks fine on paper. You've done this before. That feeling when you just knew someone was lying, even if they smiled. Or when you sensed something was about to happen before it did. That wasn't instinct. That was your inner vision remembering how to speak. Because inner vision isn't about the eyes. It's about the resonance beneath perception. It's a kind of knowing that doesn't need proof. It's the soul remembering its way home. One of the simplest ways to reconnect with this ability is candle gazing, a practice older than language, used in temples, caves, and quiet corners for thousands of years. You sit in silence, a single flame flickering before you. You don't strain, you don't analyze. You just allow your gaze to soften until the flame moves into you, until its image lingers even when your eyes close. And in that lingering light, something ancient begins to stir. Candle gazing isn't about vision, it's about presence. The fire becomes a mirror, and you begin to sense the movement of energy within, not in shapes or colors, but in shifts, stillness, subtle invitation. From there, visualization can emerge, but not the kind you're used to. You don't need to build castles in your mind. You don't need to see every detail. What matters isn't clarity, it's vibration. So instead of asking, "Am I doing it right?" ask, "Can I feel the frequency of this moment? Can I sit with the essence of what I'm calling in without needing to grasp it?" Because inner vision responds to frequency, not force. It doesn't come when you chase. It arrives when you soften. And the more you surrender to that softness, the more the unseen begins to reveal itself not as visions or messages, but as knowing, as calm, as unmistakable recognition that you are connected to something vast and wise and always have been. So when you light that candle tonight, don't do it to see something spectacular. Do it to feel yourself seeing again with your whole field, not just your eyes. And as the flame flickers, let your breath slow. Let your body listen. Because sometimes, what we've been seeking all along was never far. It was simply waiting for us to stop looking with our eyes and start remembering with our soul. If you've been waiting for a sign, a flash of light, a voice in the dark, some overwhelming surge of energy, what comes next might surprise you. Because in Thoth's hidden teachings, it's said that the first touch of Source doesn't arrive like thunder. It comes as a whisper, a soft, almost imperceptible pulse that moves through the field when you are finally still enough to feel it. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it is real, and once you sense it, something shifts forever. This is the moment many miss because they're waiting for fireworks. They think divine flow starts with something overwhelming, something to grab onto. But in truth, it begins when your emotion, your attention, and your desire aligns so precisely that the field notices. Not because you forced it, but because you matched it. This is the first pulse. It doesn't erupt, it ripples, like a single circle spreading across the surface of a silent lake. You don't make it happen, you become still enough to receive it. And in that stillness, something inside you stops reaching and starts radiating. You're no longer asking, you're no longer hoping, you're broadcasting. That's the moment everything begins to respond differently. Not just because you want something, but because the field can finally hear you clearly. Your signal is coherent, your vibration precise, and it doesn't matter if you say a word. The pulse speaks for you. This is not a technique to master. It's a frequency to remember. And when it moves through you, it leaves no fireworks, but it leaves peace. A kind of peace that feels like the start of something long awaited. Like standing at the edge of something sacred and realizing you've been here before. So when it comes, don't try to hold it. Just let it ripple. Feel the first movement across your field, like wind brushing across still water, like light shifting across closed eyes, like your breath deepening without effort. Because divine flow doesn't start with doing, it begins with resonance. And the whispering pulse is how you know it's begun. There's a place inside you still, unmoving, untouched by noise where the world bends, but you don't. It's not a metaphor. It's not poetic fluff. It's the actual seat of your vibrational power. Thoth called it the throne. Not because it rules over others, but because when you sit there, truly sit there, nothing else rules over you. You've probably felt it, even if only briefly. That moment in meditation when everything goes quiet, when time softens, when your thoughts become spacious, and you feel anchored not in your body, not in your mind, but in something deeper. That's your throne, and it's always been there waiting. But here's the secret. It's not a place you reach through effort. It's a position you remember through awareness. When you return to it, the chaos around you doesn't disappear, but it no longer defines you. Suddenly, the drama, the noise, the fear, they pass like waves, because you're seated in the depth beneath them. This is where true vibrational mastery begins, not by changing what's around you, but by choosing where you vibrate from. It's the difference between reacting and radiating, between chasing stability and becoming the source of it. And the path back to this throne, it's simpler than you think. You don't need rituals, you don't need to be perfect. You need only breath, awareness, and presence. Sit quietly. Feel your inhale not forcefully, but curiously. Let it rise like mist. Let it fall like a tide. Notice the space between breaths. That's the doorway. It's subtle, but it's where stillness lives. It's where the field waits. As you breathe, become aware of your awareness, not your thoughts, not your plans, just the one who is watching them. That watcher, that quiet presence behind it all, that is your throne. And the more you return to it, the more natural it becomes. Your frequency begins to anchor. Your field clears, the noise fades, and people around you feel it. They won't know why, but they'll feel drawn to your presence. Because when you're seated in your vibrational center, you don't just exist, you emit. You're not performing peace, you're vibrating it. You're not reacting to the world, you're responding from your throne. And here's the most empowering part. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to control outcomes or manage chaos. You just have to hold your seat. Because when you hold it gently, consistently, everything around you recalibrates. The energy shifts. The patterns dissolve. The path opens. So today, instead of asking, how do I get through this? Ask, where am I sitting right now? Am I on my throne or in the storm? And if you're in the storm, it's okay. Just breathe, return. Because that throne, it's not a place you earn, it's a place you remember. And once you're there, the world no longer decides your frequency. You do. Raising your frequency doesn't mean pretending to be happy. It doesn't mean forcing positivity or ignoring pain. That's not evolution, that's emotional bypassing. The real practice of raising your vibration is much more honest and much more powerful. It begins by asking, what am I standing on inside myself? Because your frequency isn't just about what you say, or even what you think, it's about what you believe when the lights go off. It's the emotional base you return to again and again. Is it fear? Is it scarcity? Is it waiting for permission? Or is it trust, expansion, enoughness? To shift your field, you don't have to become someone else. You just need to change where you're vibrating from. And the most sustainable way to do that, start with your mornings. Each morning, before the noise of the world rushes in, you have a window, a gap between sleep and momentum. That's where your field is softest, where you can imprint a new frequency with clarity. Begin with breath, not just any breath chakra breathing. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly into the base of your spine. Feel the energy rise. With each breath, imagine light moving upward through each energy center. Root, sacral, solar, heart, throat, third eye, crown. Don't analyze, sense. As the breath rises, so does your awareness. As your awareness rises, so does your frequency. Next, journaling, but not as a task, as a tuning fork. Each morning, write not what you want to happen, but what you want to vibrate. Instead of, I want peace, try, I am the frequency of peace. Instead of, I hope for abundance, try, my field welcomes expansion. You're not describing a wish list, you're anchoring a signal. Do this daily, not to control outcomes, but to establish coherence. Because frequency isn't a one-time event, it's a rhythm, a tone, a choice you return to like breath. And every time you return, you strengthen it. This is how the field starts to respond, not as reward, but as reflection. When you begin to live the energy you seek, life begins to echo that tone. People shift, paths open, resistance softens. But here's the key. Don't treat these practices like a checklist. Treat them like sacred conversation, a dialogue between your inner world and the fabric of reality. Some days will feel light, others may feel heavy. That's okay. You're not failing, you're repatterning. Because raising frequency isn't about escaping low moments. It's about meeting them with new posture, about saying, I feel this, and I choose to return to alignment anyway. And over time, that choice becomes identity. That identity becomes vibration. And that vibration becomes your life. So if you've been wondering where to begin, begin here. Not by chasing what's missing, but by embodying what's already inside you. Let your frequency rise not as a performance, but as a remembrance of who you've always been. We've been taught to wish, to hope, to dream of better things someday, somehow, if we're lucky, if we're worthy. But wishing keeps it distant. It implies what you want is still out there, separate, unreachable. What if that's never been true? What if your desire isn't a request but a signal? What if it's not asking for something but emitting something real? Your dreams aren't fantasies, they're frequencies. And when you align with them not through effort, but through vibration, reality stops resisting. Because reality doesn't respond to your plans, it responds to your presence. This is where everything starts to shift. You're not trying to become someone you're not. You're remembering who you were before you forgot. You're not begging the universe to send you something. You're beaming it out, clean and clear, through the field of your own being. And as you hold that tone moment by moment, life doesn't just change around you. it meets you. Not because you forced it, but because it had no choice. The field always responds to the clearest frequency. You are not wishing for peace. You are the peace that shifts the room. You're not dreaming of abundance. You're vibrating in a way that calls abundance in as a natural echo. This is when the impossible starts to feel probable, and the probable becomes tangible. Not because the world got easier, but because you stopped hesitating. You stopped saying, one day. You started radiating now. That's when the old limits crack. That's when the invisible hand opens doors that logic could never unlock. Because you've moved beyond trying to convince. You've started to transmit. And here's the thing, transmission has gravity. When you're vibrating at truth, at integrity, at presence, people feel it. Life feels it. The path feels it. You're not becoming magnetic. You've always been. You're just finally broadcasting without distortion. So whatever you've been wishing for, drop the wish. Drop the someday. Stand where you are, breathe, and start emitting it now. Because when your inner tone matches the future you once thought too far, it can't stay far. It starts finding its way back to you through moments, through meetings, through a million unseen alignments. This is not dreaming. This is designing. Through resonance, through courage, through remembering that you were never powerless. You don't just wish, you emit. And your life will echo that signal with every breath forward. At some point on the path, something quiet begins to dawn. It's not about collecting more tools, not about memorizing more steps, not even about doing it right. Because the real turning point comes when you stop practicing the technique and become it. All the breath work, the visualizations, the meditations, they're bridges. Important, yes, but temporary. They're meant to take you somewhere, not to be carried forever. And eventually, if you've walked far enough, you realize the thing you were chasing isn't outside you. It never was. You don't summon divine flow by repeating mantras perfectly. You don't earn alignment by mastering some sequence. Divine flow is what you are when there's nothing left to prove. Imagine a river trying to find water. It would be absurd, right? The river is water. Movement is its nature. It doesn't chase. It doesn't search, it flows. And you're no different. When you stop chasing the next spiritual technique, when you stop gripping, measuring, comparing, you open the space where something deeper can emerge. Your natural resonance, your unpracticed knowing, your quiet radiance. This is not about passivity, it's about presence. You can still meditate, still breathe, still center, but not from a place of lack, from a place of remembering. Because the moment you are the vibration, there is no need to manipulate it. You don't have to do love. You are love stabilized. You don't have to do peace. You are peace embodied. The real practice becomes being without effort. And that's the subtlest form of power. Not because it looks impressive, but because it no longer depends on outcome. You know your seat. You know your tone. You trust the field. So you walk through the world not as a seeker, but as a signal. Not striving to become anything, but transmitting everything. This is where freedom lives. No more chasing, no more checking if it's working, just breath, just awareness, just the silent clarity of someone who knows. I am not using the technique. I am the frequency it was always pointing to. And in that moment, you've arrived. If you've made it here, this isn't just the end of a video, it's the beginning of a frequency. You've walked through the whispers of the divine, remembered the seat of your own power, and come face to face with the truth that your vibration is not a reaction, it's a choice. This moment is a marker, a subtle but powerful shift in your field. So take a breath not just as a pause, but as a declaration. Let yourself say it, not as a mantra, but as a knowing. My inner vision is awakened. Not because you've seen everything, but because now you're seeing from within. And as that signal rises in you, the field around you begins to reconfigure. The current moves. The path responds. This isn't the end, it's the ignition. In the next video, we'll go deeper not into theory, but into practice. Not just awakening, but anchoring. Until then, stay steady, stay subtle, and keep emitting the truth you now carry.